Earwig and the Witch, only because it's so unusual. I mean, I thought it was unusual. It continues Studio Ghibli's well-deserved reputation for excellence for its vivid and creative animated features. I mean, do all of us enjoy animation? And I certainly do, and I think that the quality of animation is extremely high. Dave, what's your view of animation as a medium for adults and children?
Look, I really do enjoy animation if it is done well. I do watch a lot of adult animation as well because I really love Japanese cinema, so I watch a lot of anime and things like that. And I think that's the most interesting part for this film, and what all of Asia is excited about, is this is the first time Studio Ghibli have done a movie using CGI animation, moving away from their traditional form of 2D animation that they normally use.
That is absolutely so. Well, I mean, it's all about a child named Earwig, dumped at a country orphanage as a baby, voice of Taylor Henderson, child of an English rocker with flaming red hair, who also happens to be a witch. That witch claims that she's being chased by 12 others and has to shake them off before she'll return to reclaim her daughter. From the get-go, Earwig, who the matron of this orphanage renames Erica Wig, because a kid can't be called Earwig, knows how to get her own way. Of course, she is named Earwig, and that starts with pulling the wool over the eyes of the matron, the voice of Pandora Collin, and extends to the other children. Earwig was also totally comfortable taking risks, unlike her best friend, Custard. Now imagine having a kid named Custard. Very unusual. Logan Hannon, who does not want to put a foot wrong. And so content is Earwig at the orphanage that she wants to make sure she and Custard remain there. The story picks up from that point, and she is, well, all but adopted, I suppose that's the word, by another witch who uses her, very much so, and is with a man who is unlike any other, called the Mandrake, Richard E. Grant, who doesn't want to be disturbed. There's a lot in this one, isn't there, Dave?
There is. It's an interesting film, and it's interesting that we're getting it in at the cinema here, because everywhere across Asia, this was a television movie, which is kind of why I know it's got a very abrupt ending. But look, I found it a very interesting film. I thought it had tinges of Harry Potter in there. A great rock soundtrack that seems to imitate bands like Paul Bearer and Pink Floyd from the 70s. So it's a amazing soundtrack. I have to admit, I was a little bit put off by the ending, but I love the rest of the film, and it's just made me want to see what else is going to happen in this franchise.
Yeah, well, I think the franchise should continue. What about you, Greg King?
Alex, it's interesting that you've seen the version with the English dubbing. Obviously, we saw the version with the subtitles. So those names you mentioned, voicing those roles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. Okay.
Yeah, I saw the Japanese version too.
Wow. Okay. And Peter? Krausz?
Yes, same with me. The Japanese version, which it seems is far superior to the dubbed version.
Sorry, when you say far superior, I mean, it's the same content, so how can it be far superior?
Because in previous Japanese animes where the dialogue has been dubbed, it just felt unnatural and didn't quite fit in necessarily as well with the story. I always like to go with original language.
Yeah, but, well, to be honest, I thought it fitted in. I really enjoyed this movie, so that's the reason I asked the question. So, all right, Greg, perhaps you can go on and give me your impression of the Japanese version of Earwig and the Witch.
Well, the animation is certainly superb there. Ever since Pixar and DreamWorks have raised the bar for animation, they've done a great job here. The story is I found the story a little bit all over the place there sometimes, the way it leapt around a little bit there. But the heroine, Earwig, is certainly a feisty heroine to follow. She's interesting. Her journey's quite interesting there. The Mandrake character didn't quite work so much for me. He was a bit mysterious, and what was going on with him sort of didn't quite click with me. But it was an interesting story. I agree the ending was a bit abrupt, but I can see they're setting themselves up for a franchise here, which may continue. And I agree with Dave about the sort of references to sort of all the likeness to Harry Potter type thing with all the wizardry, witchcraft, and all that kind of stuff.
And Peter Krausz, did you enjoy the Japanese version?
To some extent, I did. I mean, it's directed by the son of Miyazaki, who, of course, was pretty much the founder of the studio. And I know that his son, Goro, was not keen to get into the animation business in the first place, but eventually he has succumbed and has now made this film. And I think that sort of shows in the story. The animation is quite nice. It flows well. It looks great. But I think the story just lacks something. That the whole witchcraft sort of area is underdeveloped, and I just felt that for me, an animation first of all has to have a very good story, and I feel that it's somewhat lacking in this film.
Can you put your finger on what was lacking? Because I actually thought that the magic was terrific. I enjoyed the fact that she was in servitude, Earwig, but basically the wasn't teaching her.
The problem is that the whole witchcraft sort of aspect is very much underdeveloped. It's very low key. In fact, this is where an animation can go really over the top, really for strength in terms of developing this whole witch sort of notion. And I felt that it really didn't do that, and I just didn't feel compelled at all by the situation that Earwig finds herself in.
The animation itself, I like the colour in the animation. I mean, Studio Ghibli is noted for the way that it does its product and is very, very different. Dave, can you draw a comparison between this 3D and former personal drawings that really populated the 2D versions? Because this wasn't just the drawings that had taken place in the past in Studio Ghibli's previous offerings.
No, Ghibli's always been a studio that's been known for their amazing 2D artwork that looks like watercolor paintings.
Correct.
It's something that it's not just Ghibli either. It's very much what most anime looks like. If you go back to films like I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, the brilliant romance anime that came out a few years ago, that looked like you were looking at the walls of an art gallery. The artwork was so amazing. This time around, though, with Earwig, we see Ghibli going into that kind of DreamWorks 3D animation, which is more CGI. We saw it just recently with Dragon Rider as well, and to be honest, a lot of Asian people are not receiving this film well because of that fact. They love that traditional anime 3D, 2D animation, I should say. So yeah, it's interesting that this feels like it's been made for a Western market, even to the point that it's based in England and not set in Japan either.
And I have no doubt that when you transition from one thing to another, you feel like you might have lost something of the past. So I understand that. But I like this for what it was. I mean, I love the fact I had no idea how the storyline would play out, apart from the fact that I did expect a happy ending. And there are surprises, there are twists. It's not as transparent as to who's good, bad, or somewhere in between. But I think the theme of belonging is a universal one. And I appreciated the varied personality traits afforded to the key as well as the secondary characters. I like the fact that Earwig was feisty and is a big centrepiece around whom to build a story. And I did immediately warm to the colour and the tone of the animation as well as to the few musical numbers. I thought they were very, very good. So, I mean, it can be appreciated by and enjoyed by children and adults alike. I suppose for the purists, you can't get away from the hand drawing. So I found it spell alluring. Clearly, the rest of you may have thought otherwise. So let's start with you, Dave. Score out of 10 for a movie which is very much a little bit different to what you might have expected from Studio Ghibli. Earwig and the Witch, rated PG, 83 minutes.
Look, I'm still going to give it 8 out of 10. I did really enjoy it. I love the music. I've already gone and got myself the soundtrack. I enjoyed it that much. And I'm kind of excited about where this is going to go, because this is also different in the sense that it's the first of a franchise, which Ghibli don't normally do either. So very different, but yeah, 8 out of 10 from me.
Good stuff. All right. What about you, Peter Krausz?
I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for much more than I saw in the film, so I gave it 6 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. And Gregory King?
I love the animation, the colour and the movement and that, but yeah, I'm a bit more like Peter, about 6 out of 10 for me too. I was just always disappointed overall.
And I'm with Dave. I'm up at 7.5 out of 10. So there we go. Split over this one. But we're all giving it more than just a pass mark. So for those people who